I changed the perspective a little bit today of that what we discussed now. My name is Daniel Podmiasek. I'm the founder of the Vertical Farm Institute. I'm still trying to figure out how that is working. It shouldn't be high tech. Where is the receiver? Hi, super. I spend a lot of time at the university, and in January we have the 10th University of the Vertical Farm Institute. That you have an idea on that what we are actually doing. We are somehow in the intersection between the real estate industry, between the horticulture sector and the R&D topic. So it's plenty to do. The reason why I'm talking about changing the perspective a little bit is everything starts with a story, and the key, what I would like to keep here in Dubai is actually to changing the perspective and trying to start to answering the question, how can we radically increase the food production in the city? We've done that for 11,000 years. We stopped by that 50 or 60 years ago. When we talk about building typology, this is something, I'm an architect by training, makes me very happy because this is a very rare occasion which is appearing within a lifetime. Yeah? Here you see some projects worldwide, also plant factories, other buildings, but we examined in depth on one side, and sometimes we also get invited, like for instance at the Biennale in Venice for art exhibitions where we come up with our architectural statements. Luckily with no business model behind it. So when we talk about building typology, it means it's fantastic because we believe that the vertical farm is the building typology of the 21st century because it's addressing all the issues what we also have heard earlier. And it's very rare that this happens. Actually, the last one have been the airports and the shopping mall, of course. Yeah. And the vertical farm is in a similar situation. The first ones actually appeared in the 60s. Most of you perhaps don't know them. It was invented by a Viennese company, Rudner Industrieller Pflanzenbau. And in the middle of it, you see vertical harvest object in Portland and Maine. And the last one is a project what I will present a little bit more into depth at the end. Big picture, I will be very quick because most of it what we've heard already. The first question is, why do we have to think about increasing the food production on already sealed surfaces, enclosed spaces in the center of the city, if we have so much land? What you see here, this is the surface of the Earth, 510 million square kilometers, you know it, the land mass is around 150. And the question is, what is the biocapacity for the future? Well, a part of it, it's too cold, too steep, too dry, has bad soil conditions, and the rest of it is suitable for agriculture. The cool thing is, the clear blue, what you see up here, is that what is already in use, so it's expandable. So we have around 30 million square kilometers. This is the good news, so therefore we could close the doors of our office because we have landmass enough. The problem is, most of it is under forest, and this explains these pictures. Perhaps you've seen them already. This is a specific picture what I got from the Austrian Space Agency. We taken from the ISS. Here we are in the center of Africa, and I just put Italy on top of it. All these tiny little dots, what you see here, are man-made bushfires. So we are converting the forests into agricultural land. Everybody knows about it, but that picture really shocked me to that extent because we did some measurements. Every tiny little dot which you see here in diameter is the equivalent of a city of roughly 10 to 20,000 inhabitants. So it is a lot. Long story short, there is a specific space area what we are using for food production, for food supply, and if the UN is right and we will become 10 to 11 billion people in some years, we need in addition the surface equivalent of Australia. And the other side is also that has been mentioned earlier, CO2 emissions, energy, etc. The total primary energy supply of the food sector is around 30%. In 2015, I finished my PhD, and it reached 176 exajoule. Exa is huge, 18 zeros. But that what shocked me is because I updated the numbers for Dubai for the presentation of today. Now we are already at 202. So everything is going in the wrong direction. Everybody knows about it. I don't have to go into depth since we want to have a coffee break too. But the point is, we have to think about alternatives, and we have to add additional structural elements to increase the food supply of citizens. Planetary boundaries, everybody knows about it. The moment when we start deciding, let's use the space what we already have, the area what we already have, sealed surfaces, etc., we are addressing a lot of the issues of the planetary boundaries. Global Sustainable Development Goals, Caroline Steele is convinced about that we are addressing every one of them. We are just focusing on some of them in our institute because we also want to make that measurable, especially for investments. On the left side, you see an outcome of an analysis here focusing on the Mediterranean. If we are moving towards achieving the Global Sustainable Development Goals on one side, and on the right side, you see the estimated temperature increase of some countries in the Mediterranean. Important also in our discussion, and this is one of the key advantages when it comes to indoor farming, plant factories, vertical farming, you name it, is we are dependent from climate, yeah? And if we want to expand the discussions on the climate, we also have to think about how it will change in the future. Here, in the center of it, around 2020, this is something what I would like to address at the very end of the presentation. We also have to think about if we taught the next generation, or if we gave them the instrument really to deal with it, not just farmers. I just give you an example, architectural perspective. If we have different climate zones worldwide, for instance, here in the example of China, why do all these buildings look the same? This is a quick question what I still can't answer because this is not that what architectural history is about it. On the other side, so this is climate, this is energy. The other side is, let's get specific. Every city or every country has a very specific food balance sheet. This is that what is retrievable from the Food and Agriculture Organization. So when it comes into the setup of local businesses and to think about what to produce very locally, what to import, what to export, this is a good possibility to orient ourselves in taking the right decisions. And in addition, and here there is a strong connection to that idea, what I would like to share when it comes into building typologies, the implosion of the food supply chain in the function and space program of a building. This has the biggest impact when it comes into the reduction of energy, CO2 emissions, traffic, etc., etc. So it's not just the production entity itself, so it's not the plant factory which is producing the food. Of course it is in the heart of the building, but we started by saying the vertical farm is a multifunctional building, and in the core of it, in addition, it's producing food. So if we implode them, we have also the possibility to reorganize the whole urban network, and we can strengthen the urban sub-economic network that is way more important. So this is how a translation of that food supply chain actually looks like into a function and space program. And we went into depth, I don't want to bother you by that, but we went into depth to analyze all the areas, all the spaces of existing plant factories or design proposals. We developed some in our research projects just to figure out where is the possibility, where is the potential that we actually can translate that into an investment with a return on investment the moment when we talk about real estate developers. I just skipped that, but there are some key performance indicators, of course, what is the efficiency, what is the effectiveness of the production entity per cubic meter, per square meter, etc. Some case studies, a big one and a small one. The first one where we actually developed a little bit more into depth was for an urban development area in Berlin. There is a building which should be built in 2029, and 25% of that building, it's a conventional building. We actually got the building masses, which was the result of the negotiation between the municipalities and the real estate developers. And we started to think about where could we produce what. So the primary goal actually wasn't that we are coming up with a super efficient in terms of yield per cubic meter like in a plant factory, but to differ between spaces which are solely, let's say, acceptable for the operators, clean rooms, laboratories, mushroom productions, insect productions, and we also set up some food production entities or spaces which are semi-public or publicly accessible. On the right side, these are the key discussions, of course. For every product, we highlighted what the energy impact is, how much power you need, what is the warm water demand, what is the effect on the HVAC system, and on the left side, just to get that feeling on what is the impact or what is the output in terms of kilograms and of euros. Another central point, and this is something what we always do at the very beginning, from the very early moment when we start with our conceptual development. I will explain it a little bit better into depth. I always want to understand what is the energy potential of the building itself. So what is the renewable energy potential on one side, and on the other side, what is the wind speeds? Everything is freely accessible. Yeah, we have all the weather data from the last 35 years. We do some interpolations into the future that we also understand how the HVAC system might change within the next 20 or 30 years. This is how it looks like. In principle, it's an office building. In the logic, it's an office building, but it has additional spaces, not just a production entity. What you see here in the center of it, also this laser doesn't work so well, with all the elements, the structural elements, what you've seen earlier in the food supply chain, from washing, processing, harvesting, marketing, etc. And the last diagram, what we actually went into depth, but there was a point where we actually had to stop, but this is also something related to the discussion what we had earlier when it comes into the material or resource streams. So the better you plan it, the lower the impact actually is, because there is a lot of excess heat, for instance, when you decide to start growing your photosynthetically active plants with LEDs, but you can heat the rest of the office buildings by that, for instance. Same with mushroom production, same with insects, for instance. Where is the material coming from and where are the revenues going at the very end of the day? The complexity actually only consists in a different logic when it comes into the circulation system on one side, and on the other side with the accessibility, but this of course is solvable. Skip that. And another interesting part of that is, especially when you start discussing with potential operators, everybody actually understands if there is a new fancy building which gets set up in the center of the city and you're talking to an operator, the first thing will be, sorry guys, this is too expensive, I stay at the outskirts of the city. My point always is, from a bigger picture, if you decide to set up your plant factory at the border of the city, in 20 or 30 years it will be in the center of the city. So start doing it decently, because the city is growing on one side. And on the other side, where could be actually the benefits that an operator or a CEO starts listening to you, where the benefits could be. So, and this is a common marketing strategy on one side, a gastronomy concept where you actually know that perhaps in this case it was 24% of all that what you're producing gets sold to the gastronomy locally, etc. So these are some incentives or assets where it actually starts getting interesting. And the key is actually this, because the biggest 25% of that investment actually is covered by the project developer itself. Because the central core, just to give you one example, the circulation system has to be set up by the developer, of course. Yeah? I skipped that for just quickly. This is one of the numbers what made me happy by the very end of the day, because at the beginning we didn't know what will come out. The production entity of the building was the cheapest. So it was more than 10% lower than per square meter gross floor area than the office building itself. So there is a potential. And the moment when you start, and this is what Saskia Sassen once said at our conference several years ago, resiliency of a city is defined by a strong sub-economic network. And if we have the possibility or the capacity to bring these, let's say, entities together, then of course we are also creating a lot of additional value. Very small part, very close to my heart, because this is something where we are actually working on. Here we are in the middle of the mountains in Austria, 1,500 meters in high. This is a residence. Actually, every one of you can rent an apartment there to get a little bit to make one step back for a week, for a month, or whatever. And the intention of the investor there was they want to produce a decent part of the food what gets consumed up there on their own, and therefore we simply developed a concept now which will be built now in May. Yeah, the building is, this is, oh sorry. This is a picture from 2 days ago. It will be done in May, and we're activating a part of the basements of the O level for photosynthetically active plants, mushroom production, insects. There also will be a laboratory and of course fish and crustacea. And so far, the calculations are not at the very end of the day, but 40% of the food would get consumed up there is covered, and the fish, they have to think about how to sell it because it is a lot. It's nearly 3 tons. No, sorry, that picture is 2 days old. Yeah, this is the sunset. Digital twin, it's a super complex thing, so the vertical farm perfectly fits in our hyper complex society, and I just give you a quick overview on that. This is one of the key instruments what we are using at the very beginning. We are setting up a 3D model in Rhino, which is connected with a graphic algorithm, Grasshopper, directly to the Energy Plus, radiance, and climate data. So from the very beginning, we know in which direction we are moving, and every design step is directly connected to the energy concept. The only thing what we, of course, have to build is the urban environment. I skipped that too. It makes sense that every building in every climate zone has a different impact, and the connection between these, we have 3 food categories, or food classes you could call it: the photosynthetically active plants, which are leafy greens, lettuces, etc., the protein deliverers, and the laboratory products. Laboratory products, we mean everything what is now possible to produce in a laboratory and what will be some emergent products. It's super complex by the end of the day, because this is the biggest difference between us humans. We need a certain level of comfort. I don't know if you are freezing or just me now, but and there is the growth conditions, the ideal growth conditions for the plants, which of course differ from plant to plant. I skipped that too, because we heard about AI. I just would like to share that picture again. When we talk about, or this is my daily business, when I talk about agriculture, everybody has this picture in mind. Yeah? I'm coming from Vienna, and when I started with my office, this is important to understand, when I started talking to politicians, they all said, Daniel, it's a fantastic idea what you have, but why in Vienna? Because we have the Marschfeld in front of it. So this is the agricultural area on there. On the left side you see Vienna. On the right side it's Bratislava. It's 60 kilometers we are talking about. We have that area, we don't need that. The point is, if you're doing your calculations right, the whole Machfeld is enough to supply the smallest district of Vienna with food. It's for 30,000 people. And then we, of course, set up our own calculations. We used, so I skipped that too, this is just the equivalent of the agricultural land what Vienna would need. Where is my, here it is. Can you see the skyscraper on the left side? Do I have to move that? It's a skyscraper of 76 meters. I just wanted to have a theoretical number which is important for our discussion. If you multiply that skyscraper by 11,000 times, then in theory Vienna could be food autarkic. First reaction is, it is quite a lot. On the other side, if you have a look on the building stock, it's just 8%. So this is actually really one of the numbers what I would like to keep here. There is the possibility and there is the potential that we actually can activate or reactivate already existing spaces. We don't have to be autarkic because we will create additional issues. We don't want to discuss that now, but there is the possibility to at least cover a specific percentage and to employ that. That's what I meant at the very beginning. Did we give the right instruments to the next generations now? I don't know, some of you might be involved in the academic process. I was for several years. I was part of the scientific board, but I also was teaching. And one of the fantastic things when it comes into agriculture, vertical farming, architecture, or urban design, this is something where really the young people actually have the feeling that their contribution could have an impact. This is something what we really should emphasize and to take serious. There are some results from Graz University of Technology, where I also did my PhD. We also did some collaborations with Wageningen University. But if you have children, you also have that, or have made that experience that they are somehow overcharged by that. But that's what is coming along. And one thing what actually made me very happy with it, a vocational training for Libyans. This is also 4 or 5 years ago, and 2/3 of the people what you actually see here, they already set up their own businesses in Tripolis. To conclude, everything starts with a story. I think we need a new narrative and we need a new focus if we really want to address the issues what we've heard about. Now we are focusing on the Mediterranean. I'll just be quick. These are some cities with directly at the Mediterranean Sea, 50 million inhabitants, and now we start setting up a huge pan-European, pan-Mediterranean development project, now focusing on 5 cities. Why these 5 cities? Because these 5 cities are part of the 20 most endangered cities at the sea level within the next 20 or 30 years worldwide. And just some numbers that we better understand what the market potential is, and now we are just focusing on that what in principle could be possible to produce in a controlled environment setting. Fruit and vegetables, some cereals very reduced from my point of view, from an energetic point of view, but rice could be possible, with pulses, meat, fish, and of course eggs. So with the potential by covering only 3% of all that what gets consumed in these 5 cities today, with the state of research, state of technology, with everything what we have, we are talking about 226 million. If you want to increase that percentage, this independency, think about this theoretical model what I set up earlier with this 100% food autarkic in Vienna, etc. We are just talking about 7% now, and we are already at 735, and with the impact of this Andromeda project, we want to reach a higher number, and here we are talking about 15%. All that, the 3 pillars are nature-based solutions, blue-green systems, and again, my storyline, what I mentioned earlier, and in addition, it's producing food. Every city has its urban voids, has its wounds, whatever what actually could be started with it. And Andromeda, just to conclude with that story now, is something what the reason why I have chosen that that word is that I figured out that the zodiac sign you find in the Babylonian area, Arab area, Greece, and in Rome. And I think we need something where we all can hold on to and to orientate on it. These are just some, let's say, activities we are setting up now. We are at the very early stage. If someone is interested to read a little bit more, everything is achievable for free. Document for the UNDP, very scientific one up. And to mention Dixon de Pommier, I wrote an article with, it was 1 year ago before he died. So, long story short, we need strong partnerships, we need these different perspectives, and with these different perspectives, I'm sure we are finding the right solutions and we are finding the right narrative for a resilient city. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the audience? Yes. Let's be quick. Coffee is waiting.
Hi, my name is Alex. I'm from BioAqua Garden, come from Malta. I realize you miss Malta in Mediterranean map. You didn't include. However, my question is regarding vertical farming in Europe. We see most of the vertical farming not based in Europe. Is that because of the policy that the EU has, not encouraging development of vertical farming, soilless farming, or potted farming, but rather they want us to grow in living soil as they define in organic policy. I'm just wondering, what is your take on Europe regarding vertical farming? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good question. If you would have asked me that a year ago, I would have started to complain about that issue because everything is going too slow from my point of view. Yeah, it doesn't have to do with Europe. We need these settings, we need these structures worldwide. Yeah, and the reason why I said that that question would have made me angry a year ago is because now slowly the European Commission understands that and they start setting up their Horizon Europe funding projects and grants, etc. So it's moving in the right direction, very slowly. They call it controlled environment agriculture now, yeah? So everything, we just have to bring these pieces together and the European Commission now slowly starts understanding that, yeah? And we also are in a, so for us it's a little bit easier because we have a very strong definition on that what a vertical farm is. I just give you another example. When I did my PhD, everybody was asking, what are you doing? Yeah, I'm writing on vertical farming, energy efficiency, if it's a contribution, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they just, vertical farming, what is that? And now we are in a similar situation. The moment when I say vertical farming, everybody's, yes, vertical farming, or whatever. So it's the same thing, and we have to be precise on that in the nomenclatura. When I say tree, every one of you is thinking about a completely different tree. Vertical farming gets used for plant factories, for high-tech greenhouses, for indoor production and whatever, yeah? So we still need to define these things. For me, the vertical farm is very simple. It's a multifunctional building. There are production entities in which gets activated for food production. And at the first moment, I really don't care whether it's a mushroom or it's an African catfish or if it's Lycopersicum esculentum mill. And I think this is also possible, necessary to bring us together again. Yeah, it's like the Tower of Babel story. Yeah, so we don't understand what we are talking about. The fact is, we have to think about how to radically increase food production on already sealed surfaces. And the knowledge is there, and the practices we find worldwide. And the horticulture history is 2,000 years old, aquaculture, so nothing is new. So Roberto Benigni, one of my favorite actors, once said, the new is the oldest what exists.
Europe is very strong in research, but when it comes to commercializing, they have small support at all, like Horizon,
They don't exist anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if there is any other vertical farm, big companies in Europe. There is in India, there is in States, there is in Canada, and everywhere, but not in Europe.
Yes, we should continue that discussion on a personal level because within the last 10 years I made a lot of bad experiences, and I have an educated guess why that is so. Yeah, but and this is all. That also was one of the triggers for this Andromeda project. Yeah, to move beyond outside of Austria because we don't have any issues in Austria. Yeah, this is a political decision. Yeah, unfortunately. And this is very frustrating because it's evident.
I believe Daniel has a lot more to share over a coffee to him. Okay, so we'll wind up this session, and thank you so much for having us back in